Right, and another interesting thing now that we are in that area, there is on page 2, I think, of the Nation, where we have I'm sure you probably had this on Hot Topics last week, for those who may have been there, and it's in regards to talking about some of these things in church. There is the conversation of talking about sex. There is, of course, the advert that has gone out by Mavuno, and there is a la carte, there is self-service, where they're talking about, masturbation and all that. I don't know what your take is when now this goes to the church front.
Well, I think church people should talk about sex, but I think there's a manner in which, in a church setting, because if it comes across too like secular.
So you baptize the names and say,
no.
call it something.
Yeah, pour holy water on the
holy water.
What is a la carte and do it? What are all those things? Those things
so
sound
when
like
you say there's a certain way we should do it, what do you mean? Do you mean that we cannot call a spade a spade?
I think call a spade, but don't call a spade what people of the world call a spade, because now lines are blurred. Going back to another Mavuno campaign.
Blurred lines.
Yeah, between am I in church or am I on Twitter? Where am I? You need to. I think you still need to have a distinction between church folk and world folk.
So if you're talking about sex, call it sex, not.
Don't call it all these other fancy terms that we see everywhere else, because if you're talking to a young audience, especially, they may not make the distinction between this is pure and something that I should listen to, and then this is like Nicki Minaj twerking in a club,
But that's the language they use. Maybe that's what they understand.
But I think they need to change their language. I think
church and sex has always been very fascinating for me, because I think they all know that sex is there, but everybody wants to put it in a certain, to quote it in a certain way. I welcome the fact that discussion is there. In fact, I'm very happy with the Pope specifically for certain things that he has now, made possible within the Catholic Church, because like the Catholic Church was not having a lot of young people because they were just archaic, medieval and all those things. So those discussions, for me, I think it's all right.
But how do you have the discussion though? Do you have the discussion the way you would have it in a brothel, or do you have it the way you would have it in a church?
Well, where was Jesus? Where was Jesus for most of the time? He used to go where people are sinning, so that then he can get them out.
No, but Jesus is not going to go there and tell you, oh yeah, when you're getting it on.
Yeah.
There's a certain manner to the way you're going to talk about it. Like, let's say if you talk about it with your children, you're not going to use street slang and all that stuff. No. You're going to be proper about it. I think that is the shock value that most of us have received from seeing those ads. Things like the power of the rod. First of all, why?
No, Angel, this is like getting the power of the rod. You're not going back to Molly.
Why
not? No, this is very good. I like that they're using gastronomical terms. I know at this there are people who cook well.
Thank you.
People like eating.
It sexualizes it a bit too much. It secularizes it.
The church should have a standard. It should have standards.
It should have a standard
for what?
Should not think.
One at a time.
Mike, do you know how below this youth are? Sometimes to get a pig, you have to get into the mud, like they say.
But you're getting into the mud to clean up the pig so that you can go and do that stuff.
Yeah, but you have to go down there.
So you come out looking like a pig yourself.
Yes, but
then you shower.
You both shower.
Oh God, have
you and the piglet. You shower together.
Then you shower with the
piglet. With the piglet.
Okay, now we need to restrict even the language you use here, because we need to stay to the conversation. So the issue is not the fact that it's addressed, but the manner in which
address it because it needs to be addressed, but don't make it sound like you have to have a standard as a church. You have to have like a certain level below which you do not sink, and people rise to your level. You don't sink to that level. No, as if for example I took my child to church, I wouldn't want her to be hearing about acts of the road and a la carte and do it yourselves, because I think that's.
But that's the language they understand.
But I think do it yourself has been there ever since.
That's probably the language they understand.
They are not in kindergarten.
I refuse. That is one of the languages they understand. That is street language, or that is casual language. The reason you bring children up in your home and you take them to school is so that they can learn how to be proper and functioning individuals of society. Yeah, so you can't say that because you're a teenager or you're the youth, the only language you understand is says, what. Like, no, you can also talk about it in plain English terms. Doesn't have to be embellished, just facts. They'll still understand. It doesn't have to be overly sexualized.
I actually want to ask, now that you're an angel, how is it done? You know, how is it done in like the Muslim? How is this? How does it come? Because the religion, yeah, how is it addressed?
Well, okay, most of the time it's through your family probably before marriage or when you hit puberty, and your mother will talk to you about those things, or your father, or wazeh.
Or your
sometimes
father.
they do.
To girls.
If you're a boy.
If you're a boy.
Oh.
There are no boys in this situation.
Okay.
Like you.
I forgot.
No, you're also a
Me, I was brought up like a wild dog.
Well, we can see
explain. Yeah, and there's some imams who actually have sermons and they give mawaida about these things, like in closed circuits. Like, let's say they'll be like, after this prayer, we're going to have a talk about, you know, relations between man and woman. Whoever wants to stay for this can stay. And they just tell it to you how it was taught in the Quran and the Prophet's words about it and scholarly. Like
so I guess it goes back to what I was saying earlier. The reason why the church is tackling this is because the home has failed.
Yes.
Because initially this really should be done from the home setting. We used to have aunties who would come and talk to the ladies, have uncles who talk to the guys, if the parents cannot. But of course that institution now has been watered down and failed, and as a result the church has to take it up.
Mike, when did that happen? I'll tell you a true story. This might tell people. I remember my dad, his way of telling me about sex and everything was one day he shoved a box of trust. This was in the 90s. And he said, Tony, if you ever want to do anything, use this office. Yeah, and that's the only conversation. And my mom was all about
and you understood it.
Yeah? Yeah, that's what he said.
Debatable. I don't know how much you understood.
Tony, if you ever wanted to do anything.
Question, did you know what they were?
Okay,
you could have tried blowing them as a, like a balloon.
No, I was not a daft 13-year-old.
Oh, you were 13.
At 13, were you blowing that?
Why were you being given condoms at 13?
No, that was my dad.
But you see, these guys, by the time they were 13, they had been taken through the cart, were you? Yeah.
Not cat.
So therefore it meant...
Mater Hospital.
So therefore it meant...
When I was 8 days old.
So therefore it meant that you're now a big guy.
Mater Hospital, 8 days old
But
is what
you
you're saying.
What are you being given that thing.
Oh, you are
to take.
Muslim style.
Yeah.
So why were you doing it Muslim style now? And then you're making noise again?
Yeah. You guys are missing the point. We're talking about Tony and his box of condoms.
In fact, I can already see the headlines for the Pulse next week. Tony, our
Tony
gets the cat at 8 days old. But
yes, because I'm just wondering.
Right now.
Oh gosh, that's funny.
What I was saying to show you this example is there this mythical African story about how in the old days that he used to have uncles. Ugandans at Shemejis, they tell you about sex.
It's what used to happen.
True.
I don't know anybody who that happened.
No, but you see, just because you didn't get those lessons does not mean they didn't.
Did you tell your sons?
Yes, I did. We've had that conversation.
Wow.
Yes.
And what language did you use?
I used
plain language.
Plain language.
Okay. Thank you.
Call a spade and just, although I must admit that it's a very difficult conversation to have. You literally have to grit your teeth and say, okay, I'm doing this. And very uncomfortable, but it is doable.
So then fathers should follow example, because few are. This is where Mavuno Church is seeing a gap somewhere.
And so now, if Mike's kids, having been told a spade is a spade, go to Mavuno Church and are told a spade is
not a spade.
A rod. So now there's a disconnect.
Well, I guess if they have the fundamental foundation of knowing a spade is a spade, when it is called a rod, they still know that it's a spade.
Yeah. Yes, but then why should you have those divergent views when the church ideally should be saying what a parent is saying?
Because there are no fathers like Mike. There are just fathers who are
here's the thing. There's a choice, by the way. You do not have to go to Mavuno if it's not working for you. You do not have to take your children to Mavuno if it is not working for you.
Yeah, but you see, they are appealing to children, so children will want to go to Mavuno.
No, your children go to where you tell them to go. Who is the child? Who's the parent?
The child is age 13, who apparently at that age
no. I'm the parent, you are the child. And that's how it is.
But I guess we've got the point that the church can address these issues. However, how they address it, I think, is what would remain in question. Although I'm sure maybe an advert like that would be, their justification would be, we're trying to attract the crowds because this is the language they know, so we're trying to get them there, and Oshin refuses. She's not.
Is it about the message or is it about the number? Angel, yes, thank you.
Is it
My
about?
Friday so made. The other time I was goddess.
You know now, you're
angel.
wow.
I love it when I'm
You're
here.
very celestial.
Oh, God.
Judy and annoying.
Anyway, what I'm saying is, so is it about attracting people and getting the numbers, or is it about the message?
The gospel, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
because
about
okay, if you're
rating.
gonna do it, have that talk so you can make it fun and put such kind of posters out so that it can do the rounds on social media and do funky hashtags, G finders keepers, G whatever. Is it about the hits or is it about the message? Are you actually trying to educate these kids?
So they should stick to the message.